So how do you take the milk from the coffee? Especially when you're dealing with a request from people who said you should not have put the milk in the coffee in the first place. It's a bit of the issue, a reflection of the issue concerning the political ombudsman's office and the decision by the government in 2024 to put that office, to have it subsumed into the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, ECJ. There are fresh calls for that tie to be undone, because they say that office, those who say so, ought to stand independently to be able to deal with matters concerning political interactions between and among parties, political parties, and their candidates. That's the issue we have up for discussion on the show this evening. I'll speak with the former political ombudsman when it was an independent standalone office. And of course, we'll hear from the Justice Minister, Delroy Chuck. Back with us on Lead Story here on CVM TV. So just to give you a timeline of how we got to this position, we were now asking, well, some people are now asking for that subsuming of the office of the political ombudsman into the ECJ, for that to be undone and for the office to stand alone as before. Go back to all the way to August 15, 2002, when the Political Ombudsman Interim Act was enacted. Then jump forward 10 years to when the Member of Parliament for Southwest St. Catherine, the JLP's Everett Warmington, brought a motion to Parliament to scrap the office of the political ombudsman. That motion was accepted unanimously by the parliamentary committee at that time, but the move to do what Warmington's motion set out to do was delayed. And of course, you remember that by 2012, a new government was in power. The JLP administration had lost the 2011 election and the PNP had taken charge, but there was cause for the move accepted at the parliamentary committee to be delayed. Jump forward 10 years, and Donna Parchment-Brown, her term as political ombudsman ended. And with that, the government said, through the Justice Minister, that, look, the time is right to put the office of the political ombudsman into the ECJ because it will save money and it will cut down on the use of resources. And in any event, they said, the government, that it is a role best performed by members of the ECJ who brook no controversy, who are accepted across the political divide as an avenue of balance where matters concerning parties and politics are concerned. And why would you not want a body that commands such respect and who functions in the way they do? Why would you deny them the chance of presiding over matters that would ordinarily come to the desk of the political ombudsman? And so that's how we took a major step, a massive step to where we are today. Now, of course, you would have known that legislature would have been passed. You would have known that the government used its majority in the House to push through its mission to get the office of the political ombudsman into the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. And now we are here. That took effect just before the general elections, no, the local government elections, beg your pardon, of 2024, took effect just before that. And now we are here on the cusp of a general election, and people are saying, look, the issues that will come up, ought properly to be dealt with by a political ombudsman who exists outside of the ECJ. The ECJ already has its role to play. It already has its fair share of matters to sort out. Leave the political ombudsman as a standalone entity as it once was, so it can properly deal with the issues that come up, rather than have it bogged down into the ECJ and perhaps bring the ECJ into disrepute. That's what the supporters of the untying have said. But the Justice Minister, Delroy Chuck, insists that it was the right move. He says, look, 30 million plus in savings and resources which were duplicated, no longer being duplicated, suggests that the government made the right decision. We spoke with the Justice Minister today at his offices, and this is what he said in defense of the government's preservation of the course they took where the political ombudsman's office is concerned over a year ago.
Well, first of all, I'm a little disappointed that the ECJ has not made any pronouncement on the role that it should play for the political ombudsman, which was subsumed with it. We didn't put it there just like that. We had discussions with the ECJ, and they acknowledged and accepted the rule before we passed the legislation. After we passed the legislation, I am aware that funding was provided to the ECJ to ensure that an office of a political ombudsman could function. I cannot tell you what has happened. I'm just, like everyone else, a little disappointed that nothing has happened. But I have no doubt that the ECJ is not only capable, but is the most appropriate body to take on this role of good political conduct. From its beginning, we thought that maybe the ECJ would appoint the equivalent of a standalone political ombudsman, which I could call the director of political conduct, who would have a similar role as the director of elections. But that director of political conduct would be the one who would receive complaints, who would advocate for good political conduct, who would basically ensure that the code of political conduct is agreed and secured, and also that people comply with the code. They would then investigate any complaint, and once a complaint is investigated, they could either just pass it on to the 8 members of the ECJ or make a recommendation, if they see fit, to the 8 members. Now, the 8 members consist of 4 independent members and 2 each from the political parties. That is an opportunity for any complaint to be properly assessed. And once a decision is made, and the decision, as I understand it from the ECJ, is usually, once it is made, even if there are dissenting voices, it goes out to be carried out by whoever, parliament or whatever, by convention. Now, we think that why it is most appropriate, because the political parties are represented. And if a decision is made to say that the utterance or the conduct of a political actor is inappropriate and therefore it should be retracted or apologized for, then those members could easily take it back to the General Secretary or the leader of the party, and hopefully it would be carried out.
In terms of the ECJ, how much was provided to them?
Well, I can tell you, 46 million was provided in 23-24 to the office of the then political ombudsman. Whether all was used, I don't know. Last year, that is 24-25, 60 million was provided. Now, when I examined the figures for last year, 60 million, most of it was to set up the office and probably to pay staff. The original 46 million included rental, but in the provision for last year's 24-25, there was no provision for rental, because you wouldn't need a rental. The ECJ would have offices, hopefully that they could provide space for the office of a political ombudsman or director of political conduct. So 60 million was provided. Whether they use any, I don't know. Because to the best of my knowledge, that those fundings could have included promoting what would be considered good political conduct.
That's the Justice Minister, Delroy Chuck, making points that resonate with many people who agree with the decision. But there are many people who believe that it was the wrong move, and so you have this renewed call for the tie to be undone. After the break, I'll speak with the lady who led the Office of the Political Ombudsman the last time it stood by itself.
Join my private room. Only $1,000 for a grand time.
That I know me. We never said that. But who going believe me?
That is correct. $4,350,000. Yes, go ahead. $4 million? I never approved that.
Yes, me go doctor tomorrow. So me have to get the money today, no longer. Then no me face that. Me never make no record or beg nobody no money.
Deepfakes are AI-generated images and videos made to look and sound like people we know and trust. They're used to spread misinformation, destroy reputations, and are used to commit fraud and scams.
Don't fall victim to deepfakes. Protect yourself. For more information, visit broadcastingcommission.org or scan the QR code on screen.
Right, so on this issue of the Office of the Political Ombudsman being now part of the ECJ and the government's stout defense of that decision taken in February last year, taken through the parliamentary process, assented to by the Governor General, and now it is the rule of the engagements. Yeah? I'm turning now to the former political ombudsman, Donna Parchment Brown, for her perspective on, really what should happen to an office such as that, especially at election time, but not restricted to election time. Donna Parchment Brown, good evening. Welcome to Lead Story here on CVM TV.
Thank you so much, George. A real pleasure to be with you and your guests this evening.
Thank you very much.
And this, I think, is a worthy lead story, if I may make that acknowledgement.
Thank you very much.
And to say, yes, I had a wonderful term of 7 years as Jamaica's political ombudsman. It was an honor to serve, and I admitted office in 2022. And although eligible for a 5-year extension, I was not offered one, and I'm perfectly comfortable with that situation. So my utterances have nothing to do with me personally. They have to do with the question of good governance and, Jamaica's welfare. So just to say, the Political Ombudsman Commission did not just come out of the air. It came out of a period of consultation, which involved government, opposition, civil society, and other persons. And it was a turbulent period, and we felt as Jamaicans that the ECJ, the public defender, the political ombudsman, INDECOM, these were important institutions for Jamaica. And most of those entities had interim acts where the act provided that under Section 3 in the Political Ombudsman's Act, it should get constitutional protection, which would have meant that what happened in February of 2024
could not have happened.
Could not so easily have happened.
Yeah.
So why have a political ombudsman commission at all, whatever the format is? It really came out of a code of conduct that was agreed by political parties, signed off by political leaders, who said that we believe that as politicians and our supporters, these are things we should live by. And as the party leader, I make a commitment that when the ombudsman makes a recommendation, I will give it due consideration and assist in having those recommendations carried out. So it's a partnership between the ombudsman and the party leaders to make sure that the properly investigated matters with recommendations are given the due respect. Unfortunately, there were a few cases when that didn't happen. But what I will say, I noticed you did the timeline, George, and it's quite appropriate that the middle one of your timelines said that it was a unanimous decision of a joint committee of parliament. It was not unanimous. And certainly, the decision on the legislation in February of 2024 was absolutely not unanimous. It was one party voting in favor and the other party not voting in favor. So unanimity has gone through the door. And in my opinion, on looking at Hansard, the unanimity that is spoken of was never there. A recommendation was made to the cabinet. Cabinet had the responsibility to do something, and they decided that an ombudsman was needed. I just want to touch two other points, if you don't mind, before.
Proceed, madam. Proceed. I'm enjoying this.
Thank you so much. So I was a bit taken aback when the minister spoke about $60 million being allocated to the ECJ to carry out the function of the political ombudsman. he mentioned that in 23-24, 46 million was allocated, which included rent. Let me make it clear, I left the office in 2022. And up to that time, there had never been an allocation above 25 million. So that 46 million in the year when the office was vacant, it's hard for me to understand what that could be for.
Yes.
And as for the 60 million to the ECJ, where one of the points about it is that we needed to save money. All the commissioners of the ECJ are already being paid. The few staff of the political ombudsman office were sent off without being paid any redundancy. 2 of them sent on retirement without getting any gratuities or any compensation.
Yes.
So, you know, that I was a bit alarmed here about that 46 million in the year after I left office, and there was no ombudsman, and then 60 million. But the last point I'd like to make, sort of preliminarily, is let's think about this. The political members of the ECJ may all be candidates in the upcoming election. Any of them can be a candidate. In fact, we know for sure at least one will be a candidate.
Yes.
We know that those same 4 persons, very esteemed, respected, beloved Jamaicans, also hold important roles in their political parties. And sometimes there's a party line, which is the line you take, not a line of conscience, but a party agreed line. And those same persons now are to be ombudsman. So my daughter is going to be a candidate in St. Elizabeth, where I'm from. I'm the general secretary of my political party. My daughter is running as a candidate, and I'm the ombudsman who is to determine whether there's a complaint and how the complaint should be handled. I think, you know, that one boggles the mind.
Yeah.
I don't believe that that was well considered. And I'm not here, you know, I'm not here to fight anybody. I'm not here to put down Minister Chuck, the Prime Minister, any of those who are supportive of this position. But I do think that there are more problems than answers, and these are not problems we need to have.
Yes. So here's the thing, Mrs. Parchment Brown. Just to clarify, in 2012, when Warmington called for the office to be declared redundant and submitted a proposal of similar vein, the record that we have is that that proposal was unanimously supported by a parliamentary committee. You're saying not so?
Yes. I'm saying there was a parliamentary committee, and they were given a certain amount of time to do their work. Then they got an extension of time to do their work. There were those who felt that this position of being part of the ECJ was desirable, despite the representations of Bishop Blair. But my recollection is not unanimity. But in any event, it wouldn't stop there. It wouldn't stop there.
Understood.
Because then it would go to cabinet.
Yes, understood.
And cabinet took the view that they wanted to appoint an ombudsman.
The importance of the point is because, for me especially, I was keen to understand and establish at which part of this whole process of the untying was there ever unanimity among and between the political parties represented in Parliament on this issue. And I would have bookmarked this point as the only point of unanimity because, of course, the votes were along party lines thereafter. So you're saying that the details to this 2012 event will cast a different light on what is recorded or what is thought to have happened by popular opinion. That's what you're saying?
Absolutely,
all right.
George. That's what I'm saying. And there was obviously no unanimity in 2024.
Here's the question then. I've never heard anyone say that conceptually the political ombudsman's office should not exist, nor has I've heard anybody say that, look, we don't need it, especially given where our history with parties and politics is concerned. And the things that you mentioned that gave life to the need for a political ombudsman's office. But you would have known very much, and as a younger journalist then, it saddened me, given the respect that so many people have for you, to hear you and see you making the interventions that you are empowered to make, and political actors turning a deaf ear and a blind eye in the best circumstances and open defiance in other circumstances. The sum total of all of that for me was that, look, this is an office that is almost wrecking the reputation of outstanding Jamaicans like yourself, like Harold Blair before you, because these people don't have the strength, the weight of penalties or punishment or sanctions to support their work, to make these politicians take what they dictate, what they declare seriously. In other words, the office had no power, notwithstanding the force of personality of the office holder. And I'm wondering, how do you cure that? Yeah, how do you cure that and prevent the move by the government to give it a greater teeth by this move? I know it's a long question, but put your mind to it and answer me after this break. Answer me after this break. Answer me after this break.
Yeah.
This is Lead Story on CVM TV.
All your electrical needs, visit ABC Electrical Sales. We've got everything, stocking top brands like CNCs, Philips, and Allen Bradley. We guarantee quality and reliability. Shop with us and save with even free island-wide delivery. Conditions apply. Visit us at Shop 8 Hagley Park Plaza, Kingston 10. Call 876-754-3714-5 or 876-754-3825-8. ABC Electrical Sales, for a better choice in electrical business.
The issue is the political ombudsman's office, from observed evidence, lacked the weight of penalties and sanctions to have the office's declarations treated seriously. I'm putting that issue to the former political ombudsman, Donna Parchment-Brown.
I think, George, I come at it from a totally different angle. And my angle is, I think I brought to the table the reputation of neutrality and competence as a mediator and peacemaker. I'd been involved in that work for many years, and I think that is what led to my being appointed by the Governor General after consultation with the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition. When I met with the then Leader of the Opposition and the then Prime Minister on being appointed, in the meeting with the Leader of the Opposition, I can't forget him saying, "Be bold. Be bold." And I took him at his word and I decided to be bold. Now, sanctions are important, but we know that in life, it's better if you can get compliance by understanding, by agreement, and by people's own sense of their value and their values. Remember, I mentioned that the Ombudsman's office is to facilitate the code of conduct, which was agreed by the political parties. So the idea was that, yes, sometimes people would fall afoul, and it's important that there's accountability possible. But the key to it was the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, and the political ombudsman are essentially a team. Now, in my period of 7 years, I do not believe there were more than 5 occasions when people failed or refused to come in, having been called in by the ombudsman. And I don't think there would have been more than 10 occasions, less than that, whenever we didn't leave the table where parties had agreed to a course of action, which might have included an apology, it might have included rectification of whatever the harm was done. That happened far more often than memory seems to suggest. Because what would happen is that the issue at hand would be such a loud public issue for a few days, that's imprinted on people's minds. When somebody makes an apology or corrects an action, we say, okay, well, they apologized and they did whatever, but they shouldn't have done that thing in the first place. So in my analysis of what happened in Bishop Blair's term and in my term, is that we were able to get the political actors more often than not to come to the table, to look at what had occurred, see the harm that was done, and agree to some course of action that would remedy the harm.
Well, here's the thing, ma'am. Here's the thing, ma'am. The issue is that we are seeing the issue from different perspectives, as our natural positions would dictate.
Yes.
But from the media perspective, and I've been here not long, 20 years this year, I have seen the political ombudsman's office derided by the public for lacking teeth. It don't make sense to report anything to the political ombudsman's office because no flag now take down. It don't make sense a complaint goes to the political ombudsman's office because he or she can't compel that person to apologize. Look at how that person defiantly refused to act on the directive to apologize in that instance. Look at how that leader acted when face to face with the ombudsman and asked to do a certain thing to rectify a certain situation. I'm saying that that was the perspective the public had, and when it is that we had interviews with the political ombudsman around a flashpoint, and I was a part of many of them for my employers over these years. The feeling was that the feedback was, why did you guys even bother? Because nothing will come of what they say or do. So that's the feeling that that the bulk of the public have. Well, not bulk, a significant portion of the public has. A significant portion of the public has, which is perhaps what has fed this administration to seek to do something which has proven unpopular with many, including yours truly. But people believe that, look, you have to do something because keeping it as it is was a waste of time and a waste of resources.
But George, feelings and facts are not the same.
That is true.
And of course, we know that what is seen more becomes reality, even if it is not. But the data does not support that view. And also, there are many persons felt that it was important to have a political ombudsman who was independent, who was vocal, who was accessible to the media, and who was out in the community, being able to take confidential reports from people on the ground, and who also needed more support from the leaders of the two political parties. Absolutely no doubt about that. But my problem is, wherever you locate it, if you don't get the support of the party leaders, it's not going to succeed.
Absolutely right. So here's the thing.
So that's to me where it falls.
Unfortunately, I'm out of time. But here's the thing. I'll say this to you to leave. I'll say this to you to leave. I believe the office should stand alone. What's your position?
I 100% believe that the legislation should be repealed. It should be standalone. There are areas of strengthening in relation to sanctions. But even without that, I believe the value to the Jamaican psyche and democracy is far better in a standalone institution than where it is now, subsumed to be a subcommittee of a different entity.
Agree with you there. I would say that I agree for it to stand alone with far more powers than it had before. I don't agree with it going back to what it was in the exact form before these changes, but I don't agree with it being a part of an ECJ either. Thank you for your time this evening, Mrs. Parchment. It was my pleasure.
Thank you, George. Mine too.
Excellent. That's Donna Parchment Brown, the former political ombudsman. And yeah, we are where we are, and I don't like this change, I must tell you. And I wish it were not so, but I certainly don't want a political ombudsman's office outfitted as before. If it's to stand alone, and I desire that, it has to have teeth. That's my time. Nika Lewis is wearing red today, and she's ready to read the news. And if she reads the news now, by 8 o'clock, the news would have been read. See what I did there?
Into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins, and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sports